Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't hear. Right up, right in.
I think it's right on.
Oh.
I remember very few people.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started here for the one-part public hearing on the. First thing I'm going to just say is a housekeeping note. There are sign-in sheets up here. If you plan to speak, please sign in so we can accurately capture that for people. We are recording the WebEx well, so that's. Okay, so again, just housekeeping, if everybody will please sign in if you plan to speak tonight. This hearing was noticed in the Courier Journal on the 24th of November this year. We will go through people's comments, but before we do that, we'll give a brief little overview of the project. If you want to please sign in, please do so. Just an overview of the site. We've got this site at the corner of Grinstead and Lexington Road. This is the proposed development area and the gray there. The proposed development is for a mixed-use development with 600 to 700 residential units, office space, 239 square feet, 239,000 square feet of office space, restaurant and retail space of just over 60,000 square feet, a grocery store, 49,000 square feet, and a 200-room hotel. This is a rendering of the building. This is the south side of the street, north side of the street. The proposed TIF is for a 30-year time period. The expected investment is $554 million. $165 million will be invested in public infrastructure. The current tax revenue being generated from this property is $44,170. That's the ad valorem property tax, and $43,662 for the occupational license fees. The total expected tax revenue to Louisville Metro government over a 30-year period is $146 million. The annual tax revenue, and this is year one, so this increases as we go through time. But annual estimated property tax is just over $2.4 million. The annual occupations license fee is just over $1.1 million. The request from the project owner is for reimbursement of the Metro and U.S. Urban Services District ad valorem property tax and the Louisville Metro occupational license fee. The total reimbursement cap over the 30-year period is $114,209,532. That is 80% of the estimated taxes to be generated on the site, and that is a cap, so they cannot go over that. But if the development does not perform, they are not entitled to that full $114 million. Okay, and then the TIF requirements. There is before the developer is able to get access to any of the funds, there has to be a minimum investment of $200 million. Can you find on that, please? They are required to provide 7% affordable housing. That's up to 80% area median income. They can go to a 5% if they make a contribution of, there's a typo there, but it's 1 million. It's 1 million. I don't know. I get that number right. That's just over $1 million in affordable housing. I believe it's 1 million. It's $1.02 million. That number. And then they make that donation to the Louisville Affordable Housing Trust Fund. There's a requirement to improve the trailhead at Fairgrounds Creek and include opportunities for minority and unionized labor participation. The last piece is the developer is not able to receive any incentives for businesses that are current tenants in the central business district. No, it's not running.
There we go.
Okay. There's my, I should introduce myself. I'm Jeff O'Brien. I'm the Executive Director in the Economic Development Cabinet. My email and my direct phone number are there. So if you have any further questions or comments after the conclusion of tonight's meeting, you may feel free to call or email. The last thing I say is that we are only talking about the TIF improvements tonight. That's the only thing that is the Metro Council will be considering. That's the only thing on their agenda. So we've got the TIF ordinance, the local participation agreement, and the development plan that was proposed by the developer. And with that, we can start going through having people come up and speak. For those of you on WebEx, we are going to start with people in the room. I will just go through the list of names on the sign-in sheets, and then we will move
Testing, 1, 2. Testing.
All right, can you all hear us now on the WebEx?
Yes.
Awesome, perfect. Sorry about that. I'm gonna make sure that this is recording real quick. All right, it appears like it's been recorded. All right, well, we paused and we will start it again. These are not, those are TV. Oh, I see.
Try to speak up. I'll begin with a quote. If this becomes a TIF issuance, we will agree to the 10%. I don't know if we are going to get there. I'm not trying to use this as a leverage to get a TIF. But if the TIF comes in, we've already conceded the 10%. We already got that issue out of the way. That was Bill Barnworth, zoning attorney for One Park, at a public hearing attended by hundreds of people, almost 6 hours long, September 30th, 2019. Speaking about the percentage of affordable units the developer would agree to if it sought tax increment financing. The number was 10%. We've already got that issue out of the way. On October 17, 2019, just before the planning commission part of what this binding element says, so I don't see the need to add it because it would be required to garden. Reassured, planning commission member then voted for the rezoning. When I stated my support for the rezoning at Metro Council, I also noted the affordable housing commitment of 10%. Included affordable sale prices in the event the units become condominium and affordable lease rates for apartments. After the vote, the garden worker told the Courier Journal that the affordable housing commitment was, and I'm quoting, a big deal. His words, a big deal in terms of securing the rezoning for that project. Last week, the TIF ordinance we're here to talk about tonight was filed. And it turns out Mayor Greenberg's administration doesn't think the affordable housing issue is out of the way at 10%, as the developer had committed to get its rezoning. The discussion about affordable sales prices in the event these become condominiums and not apartments is completely omitted. If the units become condos, not even 7% of them are required to be affordable. And the number of affordable units be rented reduced to 7%. That 10% we had out of the way, and there's even an option to lower it to 5%. If a very small payment is trust fund. That's below the goal set out on Metro's own website and far below the promise the developer made to get the property rezoned. Metro Council should not approve this retreat on affordable housing. Throughout the long process for one park, more than a dozen neighborhood meetings attended by hundreds of people, I encouraged my constituents to participate in the process and tried to convince them that the process was fair, it was a system that they could trust. If the affordable housing component reduced in this way, a score or more teachers, firefighters, police officers, or nurses will lose the opportunity to live in this massively taxed. And public trust that developers will be held to their word, that something can be settled and out of the way when a developer makes a public pledge, will deteriorate even more. Mayor Greenberg's staff has been saying that the reduction in affordable units is justified by increased construction and costs. But that's a dog that just won't hunt. The increased costs are reflected in the massive increase in the size of the public subsidy from $96 million when it was presented to me last year, and I said no, to $114 million now. $18 million increase in the public subsidy. At the same time, the affordable housing commitment has been reduced by 30%. That's that commitment that Mr. Bardenwerper said we had out of the way and the rezoning was sought and approved. Many cities have much stricter requirements for affordable units and projects than Louisville has. And they are continuing with them. I can't find any city in the entire country that has said we are for reducing the requirements for affordable housing because construction and interest costs have risen. Not one. Louisville would be the first to say developers can't afford to include the required, and in this case, agreed upon affordable units anymore. That may be the mayor's position, but Metro Council shouldn't allow it. Support this development, and I voted for the rezoning. But the developer, not the taxpayer, pay for it. I don't believe it meets the statutory requirement of developing a blighted area or the but-for test that no development would happen here if the developer was required to pay its taxes, just like everyone else. I also think it's extremely concerning in a town with massive food deserts in our disadvantaged neighborhoods. Metro Council is being asked to approve a taxpayer subsidy for a 49,000 square foot grocery store between Crescent Hill and Cherokee Triangle. But if this TIF is approved, please hold the developer to its modest public commitment that 10% of the residents sold or leased will be affordable. Metro Council can do that by changing the agreements that are before it before any TIF is approved. Without those changes, commitment to affordable housing will be lessened. Public trust in a transparent local government, in particular the development process, deteriorate.
My name is Diane Villafrano. I'm a citizen of this community, and I'm speaking against the approval of this ordinance for a comparing it to the Kentucky regulatory statute, that the ordinance is required to meet for the conditions of blight. Looking at the ordinance, the conditions of blight are said to meet 3 of 7 factors. The number 1 condition is more than 50% of residential, commercial, or industrial structures are deteriorating or deteriorated on this property. 50 cents is a number. The response to this, written in the ordinance, is that many of these buildings and structures are deteriorated, not 50%. Kind of a small point. But to go on from there, how can we understand deterioration of buildings like a restaurant, high-end restaurant like Lemieux, like a lovely coffee shop, Fonte's, a lovely little furniture store, an exercise studio, all of which are thriving in this area right now? That's not blight in my mind. And then if we are to argue that this area is blighted, who has the responsibility for maintaining that property? Only the owner, which is the current development company for this property. They bought parcels of this land over the years, and they have not invested any money in repairing any perceived deterioration. So that's my issue with that factor. The second one is even more egregious in my mind. The ordinance reads, there are inadequate improvements or substantial deterioration of public infrastructure to support the proposed new development within the development area. If we are to look at the regulation, that standard applies to the existing property. There's no problem with the infrastructure right there. This is written that the problem is when the development occurs, and that's against the regulation completely. So it doesn't meet that qualification in my mind. And the third one is even more puzzling. I had to read this many, many times to understand what it meant, and I'll read it to the group. A combination of factors substantially impairs or arrests the growth and economic development of the city or county. And then it goes on and says impedes the development of commercial or industrial property due to the development area's present condition and use. That's not the way the statute reads. It stops with a colon at the word county and goes on for several more sentences, ending with the property, the deterioration of the property adversely affects public health, safety, or general welfare due to the development area's present condition. I am so hard-pressed to understand how this little property is impairing development in our city. It boggles my mind that they are saying in this ordinance that this is meeting one of the criteria for blight. Moving on from there, I'd like to talk in general about TIFs within Louisville. This project started out really as a local development issue, affecting Crescent Hill, Lexington Road, Cherokee Park, the Triangle. And people from those neighborhoods came out to the public meetings and spoke at length, generally in their opposition to this project. This project has now become a metro-wide issue because it affects the revenues for the whole city. This the funds, the TIF funds that are being diverted or could potentially be diverted into this project are competing with other development projects in other areas, I would assume, in the downtown core, in West Louisville. So it behooves the council to consider how to prioritize the use of limited TIF dollars as we develop our community. And I want to go a little bit further with that. Tagging on to what Bill Hollander mentioned and spoke so eloquently about, how are we going to address the 30,000 unit shortfall of affordable housing in Louisville, to which this project is committing right now, maybe 50 units? Should our funds and development dollars be used to address that issue? That's a question for Metro Council to decide. I'm just a citizen, but I rely on my leadership in this city to make strategic and wise decisions about my taxpayer money. And I don't believe that this development is the wisest and most strategic development to enhance the economic development of this city. I'm going to go on in a little tangent. There's some arguments that you could make that this area is blighted, there's no development. If you look at Lexington Road and you have the woods, you have access, you have very new housing developments that have been created privately. Look at Grinstead. Collegiate School is investing heavily and has invested heavily in the development of that school. Guilds Club has moved from Bardstown to develop a new building or renovate a building on Grinstead. This property, this area is highly marketable and consistently being developed by private enterprise without public money. If these properties were out on the free market, they would be grabbed up instantly. And a wonderful development could go in there, multi-purpose development, for a fraction of the almost $600 million that we are to support through the development of this parcel. I am mind-boggling that this is coming to such a point that, I don't know, I can't go on. But my last kind of an aside in conclusion is a comment about the TIFs and about this particular development company. There are 29 TIFs listed for Louisville right now. Over half of them have not been activated. I don't know why. Where's the accountability for this? My second question to the council is, this development company was awarded a TIF for a development of $80 million across from Slugger Field. That was awarded in 2020, and it has not been activated. I don't know why. And the last comment I will raise, this development company has no track record. This has nothing to do with the TIF, but they have no track record for a development of this scale and this scope. And I just throw that out for thought. Thank you very much.
My name is Jeff Cook. I'm a local citizen, resident of the Highlands. I think the issue really for the Board of Aldermen, or council, I've been here a long time, for the council is not whether this is a worthy project, but whether this project, this area, the project area, meets the criteria for TIF financing. And to me, what's been done here, or proposed to be done here, is a perversion of an important developmental funding mechanism. For the finding, and again, look at the ordinance, and there are several things that have already been pointed out, but it says the development area will not reasonably be developed without public assistance, including incentives that's provided by the Act. To me, this is absurd. This is at the intersection of three of the most vital neighborhoods in our city: Crescent Hill, the Lexington Road corridor, and the Cherokee Triangle, Cherokee area. I mean, to think if this developer would step out of the way, I'm sure people would gladly come and take up the slack. But to suggest that this is a blighted area, like I said, it has perverted what TIFs were created for. And I don't know if whether the Board of Aldermen, anybody would approve this, would say the ends justify the means. We're going to ignore the requirements of the law to get this project done because we think it's really grand. But the fact is, the area upon which this project will sit and which would have to be meet the requirements for TIF financing simply is not blighted. It does not meet the criteria, and therefore any vote to approve this ordinance would be ignoring the law. And I think, again, it's a perversion of a system which was created to fund underdeveloped areas, brownfield. If you look around, you must live in a bubble if you think this area is blighted, because even in close neighborhoods, the city didn't step up to help the government center on Barrett Avenue. That's set now for years. The city didn't step up to help them. They're obviously, you go further west, and you can find areas that are much, much more blighted than this. So I think, again, the vote for this is to ignore reality, and it's to ignore the law.
Diane Cook, and I'm with Lexington Road Preservation, and we are against the TIF. This is just a huge tax burden for our city and the state to take on for private investors. All the while, our property taxes continue to increase all over the city. This project is still just too large and too tall. Also, we believe the developer should pay for his own project and get his own investors and not request taxpayer incentives. Thank you.
John Cook. Yeah, project. Let's pronounce your name.
The speakers who have gone before me have addressed various legal issues and addressed them very well. So there's no need for me to add on what has already been so eloquently said. However, I haven't heard anything here tonight from these people that want us to pay into them $250 million over the next 30 years. Not meaning to be overly technical in my approach, but if somebody's wanting that much money, they're going to have to give a reason for we people by way of our state and local government to pay it. The burden is on them. But where are they? I guess they're not here. I guess they're afraid to present their case. Now, if they do present it, I'd like to respond to it, and the other speakers would like to respond to it. But until that happens, they haven't proven their case. And the bigger problem we run into is there was mention about TIFs. I tell you what, you know, U of L's basketball program had a more successful program last year than TIFs have in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. If you want to get something done wrong, just make it a TIF. Something's bad is going to happen. There's no question about it. So the bigger problem is when we're just giving money away like this over and over and over. How do we really expect there to be any progress? There's not going to be progress. You know, anytime we've had a gubernatorial administration that really made progress, the one thing they said was, we're not going to be having all these kickbacks and handbacks and all of that. And already it's been pointed out, they come in and they say, well, the 10% for affordable housing is taken care of, and now it's not taken care of. This thing's just moving around and around and around. You know, they're moving the goalposts stuff all the time. So this thing is just not the kind of thing we need. This idea that they're going to come along with something real super fancy and, you know, help the people on the Brownsboro Road area and the Frankfurt Avenue area. Now, you know, maybe for them, you know, that's a blighted area, but it's not for the good people that live there. So the problem is this really, really, really is going to be affecting ultimately the public integrity. Now, I know anytime somebody says I'm from the Department or whatever of Economic Development, that means they're giving money away. And unfortunately, it's like that lady up there a couple of decades ago in New York. Only the little people pay taxes. Well, yeah, and there's no need for us to pay it over. This is no partnership. It's just a giveaway of money. So until these fellows want to stand up here in the public before us and explain to us and answer the very, very well stated legal objection, they're out in the cold. That's the way it works. That's the way it's supposed to work. Unless, is there somebody somewhere going to be giving some money away here, there, and yon? What political favors are going to be given? It's just too complicated. So until they want to stand up here and answer the public, this is a no. Thank you very much.
So we do have representatives of the developers team here this evening.
Oh, they should have gone first. Don't they have to establish how they get the money?
No, they don't.
They don't? No.
Okay. Next is Diana Sinicola. Again, I apologize for that.
Hi, I am here just as a citizen. I am a resident of Clifton. Like many of the folks before me, I am not in favor of the TIF for this particular project. I'm concerned about the value of that as a public investment, and I've been searching for evidence for why that inclination might be wrong, and I've not found it. I'd like to know, where is the data showing the demand for these apartments and office spaces and retail that the current scope of work includes? How old is that data? We know that this project was conceived of in the mid-2010s, which is a decade ago now. The world has changed since then, and rather dramatically in the last 3 years. And yes, one of those changes is definitely that construction costs and interest rates have skyrocketed. And this proposal reflects a response to that change in the form of what the developer wants from us, the taxpayers. In fact, from what I understand, this proposal does not even satisfy the developer's full sense of need, because Frankfurt is the next funding request stop. This proposal is all about the developer's need to respond financially to the current market. But what I've been looking for is, where is the evidence that the programming and this much vaunted vision has also evolved to match the needs of the community and thus earn our citizen support to gamble future revenue on this project. So for example, with the rise of remote work, the demand for office space, especially Class A space, has crashed. This is true in our downtown core and in our suburbs. There's clearly an acknowledgement that this project is more likely to cannibalize than multiply the existing market for such space, in that very provision attempting to prevent movement from downtown to these prospective towers. So regardless of whether and how that is to be enforced, doesn't the very fact of the existence of that provision provide evidence that this project does not respond to our local market needs? Outside of Louisville, data shows that demand for rental housing, especially so-called luxury apartments, is flattening out and in some places crashing. Has due diligence been done on current vacancy trends at the Baxter, Axis, the Woods, even the tower down in the park, just to name a few? Ample evidence has been publicly shared that Louisville's actual rental housing needs, estimated in the thousands and in some cases tens of thousands of units, is specifically mid-rate and affordable units in neighborhoods to the south and west of this location. Yet this project is attempting to withdraw from that responsibility to our community by reducing the number of affordable units. How can we as citizens justify putting money into this project as they attempt to buy their way out of this particular responsibility? If there's $1 million to spend to not do something, why do they need us to gamble $114 million on the chance that they might do something responsive? Similarly, as it pertains to the proposed grocery store, we have solid evidence that food deserts in Louisville will not be served by a location at Lexington and Grinstead. As we've learned how to live, work, and shop differently in the last 3 years, another market change that this project does not reflect is in their retail program. The demand for suburban-style retail space at Class A rates has not recovered. Thriving retail nearby is now in neighborhoods like Shelby Park and Butchertown, where small businesses can afford the ROI on the square footage. Even Frankfort Avenue and the original Highlands, which are pre-pandemic hotspots, are trying to rebalance their rent expectations after significant vacancies. Then looking for comparable examples around town, Metro has few tools for holding projects accountable for their promised delivery. So returning to the grocery store argument, there was going to be a grocery store in the Omni development, but that turned into what? Once Omni was given all that it asked for, Metro had no further influence or leverage on how the plan was executed, and there's still nothing contributing to density, urban beautification on the site of a demolished historic building at the corner of Muhammad Ali and 3rd. Another example is the former Urban Government Center. The city broke a contract recently to redevelop the former Urban Government Center over a $13 million funding gap. Now, I understand the difference between a grant or a direct subsidy and a TIF, but if $13 million, real dollars in today's money, is enough to break a development contract on a piece of property that Metro actually owns and controls, why is it okay to gamble $114 million on a project, private ownership, over which Metro will have very little control? And also, why is this proposal being brought to the council by a representative of a far east suburban district and not by and with the endorsement of the District 9 council person in whose district it is projected to be built? Former District 9 councilperson Hollander has also here and in the media expressed his doubts about the TIF as well. So I too doubt the value of the $114 million TIF proposal, and I believe that there is ample evidence that it does not deserve the endorsement of Metro Louisville's council, and that's why I'm here tonight.
Ben Dunbar.
Hi, I'm Lynn Dunbar, and I'm a citizen, and I live on Lexington Road. I want to say that I am against this project, and I voiced myself during the entire process, but now we've gotten to a place where we have to give taxpayer dollars to help fund the project. So I am against this. We have other areas of town. I agree with everything past people have said, and I just wanted to put my 2 cents in and say I'm not for the funding.
Lynn Kierman? Oh, I'm sorry, Linda Kierman.
Hello, I'm Linda Kierman. I'm a concerned citizen, and I just have a couple of quick points to make. One is really more conceptual, aside from the funding, and that is that I understand that there are vacancies for high-rise properties in downtown Louisville that have increased 82% since 2019. And I've noted that there is that work from home habits have continued to increase, and Humana is downsizing its footprint to accommodate this trend. As a matter of fact, Workspace was hoping to cash in on some of that, and they've now are in bankruptcy. But getting back to the overarching concern of funds for this project, it seems overscaled. The concerns raised this evening regard to community funding are specific and persuasive. And aside from that, I think there's little in this project that's going to attract businesses to Louisville. I think it's deceptive, and I think it's a pig in a poke. Thank you.
Clark Welch.
My name is Clark Welch, and I'm with Greater Louisville, Inc., the Metro Area Chamber of Commerce. GLI continues its more than 4 years of support to the One Park project because it stands to greatly enhance an important intersection with dense multi-use development on the edge of downtown. Mixed-use developments have become common in Louisville's peer cities, like Nashville and Indianapolis, and have helped them etch out a competitive advantage. The One Park project will affirm our city's commitment to the future of urban development and help us remain competitive to attract and retain economic investment, talent, and visitors. Projects of this scale often require investment from the public sector, and One Park is no different. Investing public funds in performance-based economic development incentives creates an environment that facilitates growth while managing risk and improving the overall value of the area. And for these reasons, GLI supports its continued support of the One Park project. Thank you.
Phil Daniel.
Good evening. Hello to any Metro Council members that are watching. Hi, Andrew. I'm glad you're watching. I am in opposition to using any public monies for this private development project. It's really a vanity project by the chief developer. And please ignore any suggestion the site of this proposed project is blighted. It is not blighted. Now, from the history and usage of TIFs in general, TIFs were to be used for redevelopment, infrastructure, or other community development projects. I do not believe that this is a community development project. TIFs were to be used to stimulate private investment in a blighted area that has been designated to be in need of economic revitalization. Again, this area is not blighted. TIFs were designed to channel funding toward improvements in distressed, underdeveloped, or underutilized areas where redevelopment might otherwise not occur. I believe that redevelopment in this area without public monies is possible if it were to be more limited in scope. If this TIF is approved, this development must comply with the promise of at least 10% of the total unit housing be affordable. But please do not get distracted by this piece of the puzzle. While important for the 10% for if it's approved to be affordable housing, this is strictly a bargaining chip by the developer and by the city administration. They're probably going to give this up to get the TIF. It's bargaining chip. Don't buy it. Notes about the text of the proposed ordinance as noted earlier. On page 4, point number 1, it notes the structures are deteriorating and deteriorating. Question, is this because of owner neglect? You should not cannot allow demolition by neglect. On page 5 of the proposed ordinance, point number 2, it notes that the project cost, including 2 parking garages and utility and road improvements. I believe that this would not benefit the area surrounding the project and only exist to support the project. Thank you very much to all the Metro Council members that are enjoying this conversation.
Lisa Santos.
Hi, my name is Lisa Santos, and I'm the chair of the Irish Hill Neighborhood Association. We're the fourth neighborhood at the next intersection. This property is in our neighborhood. I'd like to point out three things. The first thing is that Irish Hill was dissatisfied with the notification process for this hearing. We attended planning hearings on this for 3 years, and we were the hosting neighborhood of the project. And we found out from one citizen, not from the press. We think the press found out from us. And so I think probably half, 3/4 of the people here found out just because one person knew when this hearing was. We did not see a public notification in the Courier, and we did not see this meeting listed on PrimeGov. So in the future, we think that notification should be a priority for that. As far as its qualification to get the TIF, we do think that the reading of the statute and the intention of the statute would say that this is not an area of urban blight. I think that most of us would agree. And then the whole affordable housing issue, after a few blocks away, they took out tens of units of affordable housing, and now we're getting back unaffordable housing, and that's pretty much all that's being put up in and around Irish Hill. So, thank you.
Hi there, I'm Mark Gaff. A couple of things I'd like to comment on, just kind of reiterating I am against this use of TIF money. In the ordinance, it describes the use of TIF is in distressed or underdeveloped areas where private development would not otherwise occur. If this project fits that bill, then probably about 3/4 of our city fits that bill, because this is one of the nicest areas in our city, other than the area which the councilman who is bringing this before Metro Council, he lives in a nice area, but I don't think that is what TIFs are supposed to be used for, to make nice areas be really nice areas, so that people that live in his area feel more comfortable coming down to Crescent Hill where I live. So shame on that councilman. This is not a good use of a TIF. The vacancy rates in downtown are growing. We all know what happened, the effect of COVID, so we're adding more high rises as opposed to working to keep our downtown vital by finding other uses for those buildings. If the argument has been made, well, this really doesn't cost taxpayers anything, and we know that is just, again, politics, doing what politics does. It smells of corruption. Our city has a history of being corrupt when it comes to development. And once again, you're telling us as citizens, sorry, you don't know what you're talking about, and we will do whatever we want to do, even though the people in your constituents don't want it, don't think this is something that is a good use of these funds. And shame on any of the council people that vote for this when we have other areas in our city that need to be developed. They have real need, and you're sitting back and doing nothing and just waiting for developers to come along and say, well, we'll do this or this. Be proactive, find developers that will take these actual blighted areas and do something for your citizens. Thank you.
are?
I live in the Lexington Road area, and as far as I can tell, I haven't noticed any tax breaks coming to me on my property tax. I think that the project initially proposed had 3 huge towers, and they conveniently reduced the size so they could get by planning and zoning. If they've still overestimated their ability to pay for their project, they should reduce it down to where it'd be more reasonable and acceptable to the community. Most of the people in the areas around that project site were in favor of something to improve the area, but not the huge size that they wanted to put in. Now, if a private company wants to build something, they should get the financing from the banks, but not expect the taxpayers to take care of them. This is not something that has to be done for the city to improve the city. It's for their own benefit. It's not for the benefit of the city as a whole, and it won't improve anything as far as bringing new business or new people to Louisville. They want to come here because they want good police protection, they want good schools, they want convenient housing, affordable housing. They don't look at a building like this and make a decision that they're going to come here or not come here to live. So as far as I'm concerned, taking taxpayers' money that could be used to build homes for the homeless, which we have an abundance of in this city, or people who need affordable housing, is wrong. Thank you.
Nathan Bushmeyer?
I just wanted to come down as one of the younger people. That I live in the Highlands, and after I found out, I think the project has gotten way too big for the area, and most of the neighborhoods around there, I live in the Highlands right by Mid-City Mall, and I guess I'm going to have to come back and deal with this when they want to build the Empire State Building where Mid-City Mall is. But I don't think the taxpayer money needs to be used to fund a private venture, and I just wanted to come and speak my mind on that. And I mean, the money can be used in many other ways. We have a lot more problems to deal with right now than allocating our tax money. Of course, the neighborhoods don't even want this, so around there. But, I'm not against development, but this project is just insanely large for the area. And the people who live around there don't want it, so please don't use our tax money to pay for something that we don't want around. And that's all I have to say.
Nick Campusano? Mark Campusano?
Longtime resident. I really wasn't planning on speaking, but hearing all the wonderful comments, they were very well thought out. I'm impressed. But there's a couple things I wish you all would think about. What happened when 1400 Willow was built? Do we have this kind of pushback on 1400 Willow?
It's
look
sat there empty.
and look what happened to it. But look at it now. It's a jewel of the gardens. Look at the tax base that generates.
Did that come from taxpayer money?
I don't know. I'm thinking. I want to get past the taxpayer. I want the group to think about city improving.
That's what the ballot is the taxpayer.
Well, you've got to invest in the city for it to go forward. We're looking at stuff 30 years down the road. This city, every point, what's that? And I won't be here. Okay, but I'm proud of our city. We have to keep thinking forward. These developers, it's not easy being a developer. You've got to work with them, and we all have to work together. Why don't we put this?
I don't think it's a forward-thinking project. I think it's
but I'm for the project. But we have to think about the energy towards homeless, towards crime, towards graffiti. they're all over the place, all this stuff. So we have to work with these people. You know, I agree that maybe you don't like the project.
Work with these people? I question that statement.
We have to work with developers. Let's talk about that. Developers. So, okay, I'm in for the TIF, but let's think past the negativity. The city has to go forward, and it takes a long time and a lot of effort. Thank you.
Okay, that is the last. That's the last person I have on my list. We will certainly come back to other speakers. Hold on. Give us 1 minute. Okay, that is the last speaker that we have in the room. So we will go to the WebEx speakers. We can come back to folks in the room that have WebEx. Tony Curtis.
Can you hear me okay? Hello?
I'm just listening.
Hello?
I'm just pressing the hole.
Can you hear me, Jeff or Caitlin?
Yes.
We can
Okay.
hear you, Tony.
Okay, this is Tony Curtis. I'm the executive director of the Metropolitan Housing Coalition. The developer begrudgingly agreed to 5% of the total units being affordable units when this project was approved by the Planning Commission with a zoning change, I believe 4 years ago. That was without the TIF. Sorry, I have my 3-year-old with me here. With the possibility of a TIF, they moved up to 7% and are proposing a buyout of the additional 2% with a contribution to the Louisville Housing Trust Fund. MHC is all for supporting the trust fund in every way possible. However, the inclusion of a local TIF with a residential component has the goal of at least 10% of all units being affordable to households at or below 80% median income. So starting at 7% before the buyout is unacceptable. The 10% requirement should be followed at a minimum to receive approval from Metro Council for the benefits of the local TIF. And as previous speakers have said, we had 48 units lost to a parking lot just up the street on Grinstead to Collegiate School. With 5%, we might get 30 to 35 units, 10%, 60 to 70 units. This is a citywide problem. We need 55,000 units at or below 80% AMI in our city. And this is just a piece of that puzzle. The other thing is the mayor just proposed an affordable housing plan, My Louisville Home, which is focused on 80% and below AMI. And I think to have a TIF offered on a program or on a development that is focused on that would be focused on 80% and below AMI, we're already at a negative by proposing this buyout down to 5%. So we've really gotten nowhere going from the 10% agreed upon affordable units from the developer many years ago to 5%. So we're getting nothing with this TIF other than a little bit of money going to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So I would encourage Metro Council to amend this to where it's 10%. And I don't think we should move forward with it if we are only getting 5% affordable housing. This is a small piece of the puzzle, but we actually have to make progress in the city. And if we're doing this, we're actually losing units and not expanding our units. So thanks to all the speakers. Thanks to Bill Hollander there for speaking out from his experience with the original deal. But 10% should be the least we go to. So thank you for your time.
If anybody else in the room wants to speak, if you please just sign up and I'll call you. Everybody will get a chance to speak.
I'm not seeing if anybody else wants to speak in the chat. I am seeing some comments, but if you'd like to actually speak, please put your name in the chat.
Okay.
Nick Lutz.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I second most of the comments from the earlier speakers. I'm a former resident of the Clifton area, and during my time there, I was never an opponent of this project. I'm generally supportive of new development. I think it could bring down housing costs and whatnot. However, where I do start to become an opponent of this project is when subsidies like this are being brought into consideration. I am an opponent of the TIF for many of the reasons already spoken of, but one thing I would like to highlight is that the new occupants of this, both in housing units and in office space, aren't going to materialize out of thin air. They will likely largely come from the community as it is today. And so the idea of subsidizing moving people and businesses from other places in Jefferson County to this one already somewhat booming area does not seem like a wise use of taxpayer dollars. If we could somehow have assurances that all new occupants of this building would come from out of state, maybe it would make a little bit more sense and be worth that sort of subsidy. However, because we live in reality, I will be an opponent to this. Thank you.
Anyone else from the WebEx?
Okay. I'm sorry, Jeanette, I can't, is it Westbrook? Yes. Okay. It's a good guess.
Jeanette Westbrook. I live on Edenside Avenue, 3 miles away from this development. And I am standing here in opposition as a citizen, as a social worker of 30 years duration, as past president of 2 neighborhood associations. And I oppose this for these reasons. Number one, we are in need of $11 million worth of affordable housing in Louisville, Kentucky. We are in need of $11 million in infrastructure repair just in the Highlands alone on our sidewalks. We are in need of $11 million in this city for all kinds of things besides a taxpayer giveaway. Sadly, developers promise much and often deliver little. Initially, it looks good, but what happens 10, 15 years down the line? Right now, we have a gut of high-end condominiums and apartments throughout the Highlands. The Baxter development stands virtually empty. That's going on all over the Highlands. And this is something we don't need. What it is a gigantic parking garage for rich people's money. A place for them to park their money, not for our community. And certainly not for the Highlands, which is a residential community. It's not a giant commercial corridor for something this huge. It just isn't. And, you know, we've got to do better than this as a community. You know, in Kentucky, 650 social workers quit. That doesn't count the private sector. We're done because we don't have any resources. Without these resources on social services, the police can't do their job because we're connected. We've got to do better. We can't give a TIF of $11 million when we have a plate full of woe that we need to address desperately. Thank you.
Chad O'Brien. Hello, thanks for having me. My name's Chad O'Brien. I'm a local resident. I live about 2 blocks north of the proposed lot. And I want to first echo the excellent points made by the vast majority of the speakers before me. A lot of things I didn't know about, which is one of the 2 things that I'd really like to raise. Like I said, I live extremely close to the area. I am a generally pretty involved citizen. As another one of the youngest folks here, I am extremely busy. I work multiple jobs, as most people in my generation do. And yet I am pretty involved. I'm involved with a lot of different kind of political organizations and things. And I had not heard of this, any of this, the development, the TIF, anything, until I read about it in the recent Courier Journal article. So I think someone spoke to the fact that there were not really signs posted, when the distillery, whatever that was, an old brick house or whatever, at the end of my block at Payne and Lexington, when that was, potentially getting rezoned, there were some questions about whether it was going to get torn down, how it was going to, when it was going to. There were a lot of signs, posters, things that I saw as I was walking around. I visit this area a lot. And all I know is that there have been construction vehicles there for a really long time doing maybe nothing. I don't really know what's going on. So the first thing I'd say is I'm really concerned about the lack of transparency and the lack of outreach to those in the community. I really appreciate everyone showing up here, and bravo for learning about this, some of you 4 or 5 years ago, because I had no idea, and that's of great concern to me. The second thing I want to bring up is the idea of the way that the TIF has been presented in all of the writing about this that I've heard, that I've been able to ingest since I read that Courier Journal article. Not only in the Courier Journal article, but some of the documents that were published from previous meetings that I was able to kind of glance at. And one thing I noticed is that almost every reference to the amounts, and in terms of the percentage, the 5%, the 10%, the 7%, in terms of the 98 million, the 114 million, it's always put forth as this is what the developer has requested, this is what the developer wants and needs, quote unquote, needs to further this development. And the thing that I have really missed in every single bit of that coverage is, where is our negotiation? Where is our pushback? What have we done to say, well, I don't know, about 114, that seems totally crazy. Maybe we should kick it down to 50 million. Has anybody even said that? I don't know. And, I'm a little concerned because my council representative in that article, explicitly said, hey, I feel like I've been kept out of the loop in that. And that's really concerning to me. So my 2 points are, we need to be kept in the loop. We need to be, we need to consider the people in the neighborhood. Not only, from the government and our Metro Council representative, all the way down to little old me living on Payne Street. And the second point that I have is, we need to have some common sense and just kind of ask ourselves a gut feeling about the morality of what we're doing. Is this what TIFs are meant for? Just in terms of like when you read about them in a social studies book, is this what TIFs are envisioned for? And at what point are we going to just let the developer who owns the land just develop the land? We don't have to give them money. We don't have to give them any money. We give them $10, right? But like, it's a big gray area, and I'm wondering why we have landed so firmly in this black area of just giving the developer everything that they've asked for. So those are the 2 points, and again, I just want to thank everybody for being here and for the great comments made so far.
Anybody else in the room that would like to comment? Anybody on what? Yeah, come on up.
Thank you for allowing me to be here today. My name is James Parsons. I'm with the law firm of Keating Murphy Kleekamp. I'm actually representing the developer tonight. My name was on the list, but it's better that I comment toward the end. I've just got a few points I'd like to make relative to this particular situation, especially in relationship to the fact that this is a public hearing on the development plan. I know a number of people in the audience don't like the project, but in that case, the project has been approved from a zoning perspective relative to that. So the hearing tonight is really on whether or not the tax incentives as requested should be granted by Louisville Metro for this particular situation. Regarding my particular practice, I practice TIF and other incentives across the state. In fact, I've done 3 different TIF projects in Louisville that have going on for state approval. The Hotel Nulu project, 2 projects for the University of Louisville, while I was the TIF counsel for the University of Louisville in those particular situations. I did the Bowling Green signature TIF. I did several projects in Lexington. In my practice, I actually represent local governments in case I was Lexington's counsel of their TIF projects. And in addition to that, the Bowling Green TIF, I was representing the city of Bowling Green and Warren County. The one thing I'd like to point out about the TIF Act is that the TIF Act, even by the statute, if you look at the very first statute as part of the local TIF Act, it talks about the fact that the TIF Act should be interpreted broadly, quite frankly, to encourage investment. And that's the whole purpose here is TIF and how this is supposed to be used. It's one of the few local tools that are available to promote redevelopment of property in that circumstance. In fact, since the TIF Act was, instead of the TIF Act being looked at as a straitjacket, the TIF Act's actually been amended several times over the last since 2007 to actually expand greatly the number of projects that are even eligible to be used for TIF. In fact, in today's environment, even though this one we're going under a straight development area, there's been a number of amendments to that that allows undeveloped, undeveloped land to be eligible to be counted as a development area to be so those projects are eligible for state participation. In addition to that, the TIF Act does not require an area to be severely blighted to meet the requirement. It simply requires that 2 of 7 factors as set forth in the statute meet for the area to be considered a development area. In this case, we presented findings and recommendations to the staff. They reviewed those and then came up with under their situation. There are 3 of 7 factors that are listed. I do work all over the state, and the factors that are set forth here meet the requirement of what the statute has. So I just want to point out that just from a legal standpoint, it's our position that the Act and the work that they've been done by staff of Economic Development Department more than qualifies for qualification of this area for development area under the Act. In addition to that, this particular project we're anticipating being submitted to the state as a signature project. This project, if you look at the definition of a signature project, it clearly meets what the state envisioned when they created this particular program to actually support these mega type projects that are really catalytic in nature and are major projects that would advance the state forward. The purpose of the signature project program is to encourage private investment in the development of major projects that will have a significant impact on the Commonwealth of Kentucky and are judged to be of such a magnitude that the effect upon the location of such a project warrants extraordinary public support. In this particular situation, this is that type of mega project that actually meets the definition of a signature project. It was what was envisioned by the state of Kentucky when they created this particular program. The costs we are requesting to be reimbursed are the very costs that are set forth in the statute that are eligible for reimbursement. In particular, the public infrastructure costs associated with that, the podium costs, all those costs that are fit within the definition of the statute. In addition to that, the type of incentives we're asking for are not uncommon for what Louisville Metro has granted since 2007, actually even before 2007 under the old Act. If you look at the list of TIF projects that have been approved, Louisville has done an outstanding job. And again, there's one comment in the audience about the need for private investment. This is a tool that Louisville has used to encourage actually the private investment. Probably literally nearly almost billions of dollars in investment have occurred in Louisville as a result of use of this particular Act. And the particular project we're talking about, as was shown earlier, the capital investment is $554 million. It will generate just the Louisville alone $146 million in direct taxes. That does not count all the other taxes the project would generate to other taxing districts that will not be impacted, will not give up any revenue to the TIF. The report from Commonwealth Economics that was part of the file that was presented with the TIF shows that the direct tax impact, the one part for all the taxing districts in Jefferson County, is $673 million over 30 years. You can't discount that and the importance of this particular project, especially when you say Louisville needs the money in that circumstance. In addition to that, the total economic impact of this project has been estimated by Commonwealth Economics, which would be the direct and indirect impact of this particular project over the 30-year period of $17.4 billion. That is part of the file that was presented, and it's part of the record that's in the file here. In addition to that, as far as the need for this particular project, the type of project we're talking about, the need for structured parking for the investment, those are the type of investments that simply cannot support themselves with the regular development. Any project that, especially a substantial project that has substantial public infrastructure, substantial structured parking, have simply cannot move forward without some type of public subsidy. Before I was in public practicing law, I was city manager and public official for years. I was the city manager in the city of Newport. We worked on projects like Newport on the Levee, Newport Aquarium, projects like that. All of those projects that required substantial public parking all required public investment, or they would not have happened. So today, if the city of Newport had said, no, we're not going to subsidize that project, there would not be a Newport on the Levee, there would not be a Newport Aquarium. The same thing is true of Lexington. If Lexington said no to CenterPoint, there would be no CenterPoint project in downtown Lexington. So relative to that, I would like to point out a few things about this particular thing. We're not talking about giving away existing taxpayer money for a particular project. This project has to self-generate its own incentives, like other incentives that are approved by, recommended for approval by the Economic Development Department. It's not on day one when the project TIF is approved, we don't get those type of funds. The project has to be built. It has to generate the taxes. We're only getting a portion of those taxes after the project is built and operating. In this particular situation, I'd like to commend, talking about negotiations, I'd like to commend the Economic Development Cabinet because in this particular situation, there are several factors that protect Louisville Metro in this particular situation. First of all, there has to be capital investment of at least $200 million before any local increment is pledged back. That's a substantial amount of money that has to be spent. There are specific, in this particular provisions, there's a brand new provision that have not been in other incentive agreements, including the project percentage completion. So for instance, say in this particular situation, instead of $554 million investment, if we don't invest that much money total, say the total project comes in at $500 million, we'll get a percentage, we can get a maximum of the capped amount, we'll get a percentage of $500 million divided by the 554 times the capped amount. Again, in addition to that, something else that Louisville Metro does do and requires, they only allow recovery of public infrastructure costs. Legally under the Act, the TIF could be utilized for a much broader return of costs associated with projects, but in this case, that's also there. And regarding the issue of taking existing jobs from the downtown, there are very specific provisions in the local participation agreement that the existing jobs that are created are existing and they may move into this particular location are not to be counted toward new revenue. So just be aware of the fact that there are a lot of safeguards that are built into this to protect the taxpayers. And finally, I'd like to point out again, this is money that does not exist. You can't, right now, the revenue we're talking about generating doesn't exist. So it's simply sharing, the Louisville Metro agreeing to share a portion of that revenue that would be generated by this project in order to make the project work. And those are my comments for the record. I just want to get some things in there. And I know I'm not going to convince any of the citizens here tonight, but I would like to at least get in the record that those are the facts of the matter. Thank you.
Okay. So two more on WebEx. If anybody else wants to speak, please.
Can we just respond one thing to council? He suggested those criteria had been met as a matter of fact, when in fact that is a question.
That's a question of fact. He suggested that it is fact. In fact, people here in opposition say it is not a matter of fact. That could be ultimately left to a court to decide.
Kira, you unmute yourself? I hope I pronounced your name right.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Kira Murphy. I live in the Cherokee Triangle area. I'm involved in the community. Before I lived in Cherokee Triangle, I was over on Beechwood next to Mid-City Mall and have lived in the Highlands for about 15 years and Louisville my entire life. I'm an interior designer. I travel. I'm a millennial. I'm passionate about development in Louisville, in the Highlands area, but have always been opposed to this project since it started as 3 towers. I would like to also second what a couple speakers before me said, that the notification for this meeting was a joke. I literally found out about it last night on Nextdoor via another councilman. And I'm pretty in touch with getting Metro newsletters and such. And I'm really disappointed that a project of this size, one that really affects the community, does not have more transparency and notification when meetings like this come up, especially in regards to receiving something like a TIF, which I was unfamiliar with until really today when I started researching it. I really also agree with the morality fact about, this money going to a project like this, when we can look around various neighborhoods in Louisville and projects that need this money far more than this one does. Just astounds me that it was even being asked for, and makes me pretty angry, actually. And lastly, I just want to say that, I appreciate everyone speaking tonight. I love that there is, representation of all generations, but as the, generations that will be, targeted to live in this property and in the area, for many years to come, and living with the traffic changes that it would cause, the potential other developments that could happen down the line, that is just really not wanted by most people of my generation. We want to move into cute houses in Germantown, or, after college, rent apartments that are in interesting houses in the Highlands. I've never understood the need for this project in this specific area, especially. And I'm very much opposed to it receiving the TIF and, frankly, being built in general. And that's all.
Ann Ramser.
Ann Ramser.
Thank you. This is Ann Ramser. While the development plan was approved, it was approved despite a lot of opposition. I've heard that this TIF is being presented that they get 80% back on the property tax, but the city will still come out better because it will raise the property taxes of the property surrounding the property. So that means that the people that are opposed to this development are going to be paying higher property taxes to support the development. That to me does not make any sense. The property is not blighted. If this property is blighted, then the whole city of Louisville is blighted. And that blighted term was used back in the late 1980s and early 1990s to basically destroy a lot of neighborhoods around the airport. That went on for years, and the state came back and said, no, you're wrong. That property was not blighted, but we still lost a lot of houses. I am totally against this TIF. It just does not serve the best interest of our community. Thank you.
Please. You can speak.
Okay. My name is Kelly Reeves, and I am also a resident of the Cherokee Triangle neighborhood. And I want to reference some comments that the attorney for the developer made. And one of the things that he addressed from the beginning of his presentation, he said that the TIF Act is interpreted broadly, and therein lies the problem. As many speakers have said, under no interpretation of this is this a blighted area. Then why the oversaturation of short-term rentals? Why the tourism? Why the new investments in hotels, apartment developments? We have constant parades, foot races, bike races, celebrations, community festivals. Is that included in their interpretation of blighted? Private investment is happening here, and evidence in and of itself that it is not. This type of incentive is not uncommon because the manipulation of the law has been allowed, and an unacceptable and overly broad interpretation has been pushed down the throats of the citizens, and that's what needs to stop.
Yeah.
Anybody else like to speak? Sir, please.
Even though in my first comments, I suggested that folks that are wanting $250 million, 3 decades of money, should have the burden of proof how the city should give that money to. Council chose not to speak. It was very mean. And he did not respond to anything. So, man with all the skills that he has, not merely in practicing law, but in practicing TIF law, can't stand up here and respond to a layperson just to you that he loses by default. As far as this thing about the base that there's going to be, said it chose to always never say the counsel for these folks never chose to say when it's all done, net the city of Louisville or Metro Louisville is going to get more money. So this is very, very vague. And as far as this idea that, well, somehow it's going to generate these additional taxes, no foundation for that. That he may be a lawyer, but he's not an economist. He's not an expert on that. Now, when somebody wants to show me their proof and let me look at it, that's a whole different story. But they chose to make the claim, but not support it, not tell us where it's coming from. Now, for a man that has all this practice of law about TIFs, he sure chose to present his case rather poorly. So when you look at all these things, I would suggest to you that, when they start going to generate taxes, one of the things about a TIF is it gets a geographic area and it takes what they claim are these additional taxes, not just from this one limited, this fellow that's going to get all this money sent back to him, but it takes this whole additional area and it gets a portion of whatever. And there's any number of reasons, and 10 years from now, there may be some industrial growth. There may be some just inflation will drive up the taxes that'll be generated, but they get a slice of that. So this idea that they're going to get all this addition, they're going to generate all this additional taxes, and they're going to get a slice of it. So again, if somebody's wanting to tell me that I'm going to make some money out of this, or my Metro Council or Metro government's going to make it, they better lay it out real quick, because until they make that point, until they're ready to do it, all I'm saying is they're going to raise your taxes. If you want that, go ahead. So I would say that when given an opportunity to respond, the opposing counsel loses by default. Thank you.
Anybody else? I do have one question for you, sir. I downloaded the project document from the website just before coming in here. And I noticed that a lot of the exhibits didn't seem to be in it yet, in the public record part. That may be my fault, but could you check on that and make sure they are.
Yeah, all the exhibits are, this is the full package. I printed off Prime Gov yesterday.
I didn't see the, parentheses, the map and so on.
Yeah, the map and the development plan and the economic study are all on.
They are all on?
Yes, they are. I downloaded it, printed it myself from Prime Gov yesterday.
Wonderful.
Could you tell people here what happens next? What kind of fast track this is on?
Yeah, so.
How they might contact council members?
Yeah, so this project is on the Metro Council's Labor and Economic Development Committee meeting for tomorrow at 3 p.m. The council will discuss the project at that meeting, and they will either make a recommendation for the full council tomorrow, or they will hold it in committee. That is at the council's discretion. That meeting can be, the meeting can be viewed via the Metro Council website, or you can come to City Hall in the council chambers and watch the meeting in person. The Metro Council members are committee members for the Labor and Economic Development Committee are listed on the Metro Council website. You can contact any of the council members via their email or via their phone numbers. Their phone numbers are all 502-574-11, and then the district number. So in this case, in District 9, it would be 09. So all the council members follow that protocol.
Which committee is that again?
Labor and Economic Development.
If they if they put that forward to Metro, when would it actually go to Metro then?
If the committee makes a recommendation tomorrow, it will go to Metro Council at next Thursday's meeting. That's December the 14th.
And where will this video be posted? Will it be in advance, or will it be part of the 18 ballot that is one of the city board council?
This video that we're making now.
Correct.
We'll have to decide where they want it posted.
So these hearings used to be before the Metro Council committee. So Metro Council members actually attended the hearing to listen. This is the process now where the council, unless they're listening tonight, I don't know anybody will ever
That was
listen.
my question. So they really don't hear these comments then?
I don't have them here.
There are several of the committee members have attended the WebEx meeting, so they have heard them. They've actually asked us to change the TIF hearing several years ago so that we could have them outside of the committee meeting, so we could have them in the evening and not the Metro Council chambers. So we have traditionally get very little input we traditionally got very little input when we held them at committee meetings. So we try to do it here to get more input. We've actually got more attendance. Most we've ever had in this hearing, but we have had more attendance from it. So there's no way to serve that content to the Metro Council. Yes, we will tender it to the Metro Council members.
I have two questions about the TIF itself. Is there a fixed pot of TIF funding?
No.
Okay.
The TIFs are TIF in this development area TIF. So there was a comment that Mr. Bahasi made about the way TIFs work. The arena TIF works that way, where the city front-loaded bonds came up with an entire TIF area, which is essentially the entire CBD, and then it uses the incremental taxes to pay off the bond. Most of our TIF cases, what happens is the developer will come to the city and they will say, we want to build a project, and they'll say, we think this project is going to perform in this way, and then the city and the project owner do a revenue split. So our traditional deal is that we will do an 80-20 revenue split over property and income taxes if the property is going to generate the occupational license fees, and then we reimburse that to the developer once they prove that they A, incurred the expenses, and B, have paid their taxes. So we will actually in this case collect their property tax bill, on an annual basis, and then we will also collect the revenues that are generated from the businesses in terms of occupational license fees, and then they will get a reimbursement based upon that. So that $114 million cap is just that, it's a cap.
For the project,
For the
but
entire,
there's not like some pot that
No,
Metro
they-
is working
no,
off
no,
of
they don't.
practically?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, annually, we budget, to make sure that we are preparing for the increment to go out, but if they don't generate the increment or don't, their incremental request, is below the threshold, we're not committed to paying them $114 million. It's not a guarantee, that's a cap.
And the economic impact estimate is performed by whom?
Commonwealth Economics performs,
Commonwealth Economics.
on behalf of the developer.
And that's the same agency that Metro pays $9,000 a month to do all the economic development work for Metro.
And
The same one did the developer. We pay $9,000 a month to represent the city's interests.
So it's a third party serving all parties interested in this.
It's not in this case, the city did not pay them to do this. In fact, most of the city dollars that go to Commonwealth Economics go to pay for TIF compliance. We have several, we have many TIFs that are actually state TIFs, and there is reporting requirements. So the majority of our content is actually used to do the reporting and compliance requirements that we're required to by the state.
So
It's the same company, though, right?
It is the same company, but
So
we did not use it to evaluate the development.
So Commonwealth Economics performed the economic impact estimate for this project when? The one that we're still working off of, is it dating all the way back to 2016?
No, this is, I believe the date on this one is July of 2023. Correct. Is it correct?
Which is correct.
It's July of 2023. Yeah, July of 23.
So if Commonwealth Economics didn't review this for Metro, causing the conflict of interest, who did review it from an economic
City
point?
staff reviewed it.
Only the city staff. No economists have looked at this at all, except for the people on the city staff.
Yes, sir.
Is there a way to determine which council people joined the meeting tonight and which ones didn't bother to?
Yes, we have a list of attendees.
And will that be?
I just saw a couple. I saw Councilman Owen and I saw Councilman Baker pop on for a second. I don't know if other folks came on either.
It will be cataloged.
His question is, where can I get that? How can I find out which of our 26 councilmen felt this was important enough to join?
Well, we can see who's still on here now, but we will make the attendee list will be public.
Through the Metro Council website, through the ASTF page that is displays the agendas and the meeting videos. Was that right?
We will need to verify that with the clerk.
Okay.
I just want to say one thing. When the attorney from the developer was talking, he was talking about all these projects that have been done or state, like the in northern Kentucky, the riverfront development and the aquarium and the things in Lexington and Bowling Green. They didn't develop these things in a neighborhood that was very quaint and not underdeveloped. They went to places that needed development along the riverfront or somewhere, but they didn't go in people's backyards and try to develop something that's way out of place. And when you do that, you're going to run people off. People are not going to use that like they would going to an aquarium, and they're not going to bring a lot of people in from out of the city to visit and to spend their money. I just think the whole concept is probably going to fail because they're not going to be able to generate the income that they think they're going to get.
Good question.
I'd like to follow up on your comment about signature projects. The signature projects that have been done historically are for the general public. The arena, the convention center hotel, the aquarium that was mentioned. They weren't developments for specific target demographic population. And I think that's a significant difference between this project and the historical signature projects that have been developed in the state.
How do we get our money back if there's a default? Does the city of Louisville have a first lien on any of the monies, including the TIF?
There is no funds go out our door unless the developer has expended the funds, has incurred the taxes, and has requested and has spent the funds on an eligible expense. That's not a question. Sure. I don't want to answer her question. I answered her question. No, you gave an answer. You didn't answer her question. I answered her question, sir.
I have a question, and that is, as I understand it, there will be a request for state funding under, and do we know how much that will be?
I don't recall what that is.
Ballpark?
It's somewhere in the $200 million range, I believe.
So that would then give them $300 million plus the additional infrastructure investment we've made?
No, it would be $300 million.
Okay, 300 million for the total project of 500 plus. Is that right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
I'll sign it.
Well, I do think.
We have one more in the chat.
Derek, if you'd like to speak.
Yes, thank you so much for calling on me.
Sorry.
My name is Derek Podolsky. I'm the president of the Limerick Neighborhood Association. And I want to thank everyone for taking the time tonight to discuss this matter. It looks like an awesome project. And
Hold on one second, Derek.
Folks, we have one more question here. We have somebody that's trying to speak. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Sorry, go continue.
yes, as I was saying, my name is Derek Podolsky. I'm the president of the Limerick Neighborhood Association. And I love the project. But where I have problems with it is Limerick, my area, Old Louisville, the West End, all need investments like this. And we are definitely way more blighted than one of the most beautiful corners next to a beautiful golf course in the city. Not to mention what has been brought up multiple times, the need for affordable housing. You know, I'm all for the project, but when it comes to putting public money, it doesn't seem like a very wise spend. And I'm thankful that my councilman, Philip Baker, is on this call. And I urge him to listen to the residents of his neighborhoods that he represents, as well as the residents of the neighborhood that's going to be most impacted, the Highlands, their councilman, to shut this down. We have police that need funding. We have housing that needs funding. There are many, many, many more priorities that need to be addressed than giving a developer money in an area that's already got lots of other investments. And with that, I'll take my comments off. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Okay. There's no other comment. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.